Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome to this show. A quick little personal anecdote before we get into the usual uh, hijinks. So, almost a week ago, this past Sunday, I get up, I go into the kitchen, I make coffee, I'm getting ready to start making breakfast, and I look out the window and I see in my neighbor's driveway, there are two cats getting it on. I got to see two cats fucking in my neighbor's driveway. And I thought, well, look at that. You don't see that every day. And it ended the way cats fucking always ends. The tomcat busted his nut, and the queen, the lady cat, fucking took off like a shot because that's how cat sex always ends. The tomcat busts a nut. The lady cat goes zoom, runs away. The tomcat chases after. I always like to imagine that the lady cat is pissed off because the tomcat promised before they started not to come inside of her, and then he did anyway. And she was like, "Motherfucker!" and she ran up. But anyway, so that happened. And then a couple days later, I look out the window in my backyard, and the same tomcat, the one who I saw getting laid in the neighbor's driveway a few days before, he's just rolling around in the sun, stretching and, just having a great old time. And I looked at that cat and I thought, what a fucking life. Like, he really is making the most of it, and good for him. Anyway, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me once again. As always, I will be answering questions that were submitted ahead of time by yes, Stephen, that's how babies are made. Um, the wonders of nature, exactly, Philip. David, well, there's not going to be much more cat fucking after this unless people ask cat fucking related questions. That was my cat fucking story for the time. But anyway, so I'm about to get into the answering of the patron and member questions that were submitted ahead of time. So if you're here in the live chat and you want to ask me a question in the chat or just hear my thoughts on something, or if you were thinking maybe of being generous and tossing a super chat my way, which is always very much appreciated and encouraged, if possible, please hold off on that until I get through the patron and member questions, because while I'm answering the patron and member questions, I will not be paying close attention to the live chat. But after I answer all the patron and member questions, I will pay full attention to the live chat for the rest of the show. No, Stephen, I don't think it's going to generate into a discussion about the power of Superman's jizz. I don't think the cat that I saw getting laid in my neighbor's driveway was Kryptonian or was related to Superman in any way. So, but you know what? It's early yet, and we'll just see how things go. So anyway, to the questions, to the patron and member questions. And the first one of those comes from our friend, General Contact Unit Problem Child, who says, I said I don't like seeing people making videos debunking RFK Jr.'s offensive autism stuff, but I had trouble articulating why. I think it's because it implies him having his position and using it to push these ideas has anything to do with there being a legitimate scientific debate about whether vaccines cause autism. In reality, there is no such debate. RFK has simply leveraged himself into a government position that lets him force whatever pseudoscience he likes on the country. Honestly, people should be talking more about that corruption than his ideas. I mean, suppose a flat earther donated $1 billion to Trump and then got made head of NASA. Then they announced they're stopping all launches because orbit doesn't exist. I wouldn't want people in media to go to the trouble of debunking that. I'd want them to just start with the premise that it's clearly nonsense and then proceed to explain why a corrupt political system has allowed such a crank into a position of power. Thoughts? I agree with you, and I would take it one step further and say that Democrats in Congress should be treating him the same way. Democrats, part of the sort of bipartisanship, centrism affliction that the Democrats have, not all of them, but too many of them, is that they feel like even when they're being critical of someone like RFK Jr., because he does occupy an official government position, they have to treat him with a certain amount of respect. And there is a certain amount of that respect that is imposed on them by the rules of decorum for, Congress and the Senate and committee meetings and such. But I feel like as much as they can get away with within those rules, as much as they can push those boundaries, I think they should all be treating all of these Trump appointees like the goofs that they are. I don't think they should be affording them any kind of respect that they don't absolutely have to. I think they should all be treating them like that. So yeah, I mean, the media should for sure, but so should Democratic members of Congress. They should not be regarding RFK Jr. Or his crackpot beliefs about autism and vaccines or anything else as deserving of being taken seriously or as a serious person, because his beliefs aren't serious and he's not serious and they don't deserve to be taken seriously. And they should use their bully pulpit to point out how absurd this is and how unacceptable it should be. So yeah, I agree with you. William Tucker, you said anyone doing YouTube should have something to say, good camera, microphone, and lighting. I have those. I would like, if you're up for it, a little tour, some technical information. You are number 6. Sorry, where did that come from? Anyway, great stuff, Steve. Thanks. I don't have the ability to give you a tour right now on the live stream. And there's really, I mean, maybe what I can do is at some point, if I have time, I can just put together kind of an inventory video. I don't think I've ever done one of those in all the years I've done YouTube. I can just sort of do a video where I'm showing the cameras I have, the microphones I have, the backdrops I have, the lighting I use, etc. Maybe I could do one of those just to kind of let people see what the equipment I have is like at the moment, because I've gone through, I mean, I've used different equipment over the years, and I'm always looking for ways to improve my setup and swap things out for other things that I think will be better. So that's another thing. If you end up doing YouTube for a long time, hopefully your setup and the equipment you have evolves as you can afford different stuff, as you learn more about your craft and find out other ways of doing things. You change your setup as it goes. I've evolved my equipment several times over the years I've been doing this, gotten different microphones, used different kinds of microphones, different audio setups, different video setups, different backdrops, different green screens, different lights, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, maybe one of these days I'll do a video about that kind of thing. But I can't do it right now. Matthias, thanks, Steve, for your honest and informed commentary on Israel, in particular, calling Israel's actions in Gaza for what they are, genocidal. Netanyahu would like us to believe that criticism of Israeli actions and participation in peaceful protests imply a person is anti-Semitic, when clearly that isn't true. I understand people in a similar mindset to Netanyahu also cruelly refer to UK Jews who are critical of Israeli actions as being self-hating. As a uni alumni, I find it troubling that the GOP has an inclination to silence peaceful debate and protests of Israeli actions in unis and schools. GOP would seem to have been both duped by Netanyahu and mistakenly believe they have the right to not ever be offended. But by limiting free thought and peaceful debate in intellectual forums, Republicans disadvantage their own country. It's long confused me, so perhaps you could explain. Why do so many Americans seem to see Israel's most appalling actions as justified and not advocate for a two-state solution? I think a lot of it is that Americans have been conditioned to view Israel as an unquestionable ally, and that, we have to back Israel's play. We have to be on Israel's side no matter what, because Israel is one of our best allies and is one of the good guys and is one of our strongest partners in that region. And there's all kinds of reasons that have been cited as to why we should, stand behind Israel. But my argument has been, especially since October 7th, of last year or year before last, when this current phase began, when this especially brutal assault on Gaza by the Israeli military began, my argument has been, it doesn't matter. Like, whatever reasons we have had in the past for sticking by Israel's side, for not being as critical of actions of the Israeli regime as we should have been, for not using our influence to push them in a different direction as far as how they treat the Palestinians, whatever those arguments were in the past, it doesn't matter. Nothing justifies what they're doing now. and nothing excuses it, and nothing makes it okay for us to continue to support it. Like it's just it's over the line, period. So whatever ties that may have bound us together and might still bind us together in the future, like it doesn't excuse what they're doing. So I think, but I think that the fact that those ties exist and the fact that we have become accustomed to treating Israel as a ride or die ally, no matter what, that's a big part of it. And also, honestly, and I don't think most Americans, especially American politicians, would ever admit that, and might not even be consciously aware of it. But Israel's kind of doing what we would do in that situation. You know, like what is the way Israel is treating the Palestinians, the way the state of Israel is treating the Palestinians, persecuting them, mass murdering them, forcibly relocating them, starving them. These are all things that in American history that the American government has done to undesirable groups in the United States. And there are some people to this day still who don't really seem to understand why that was wrong or why that should not have been done. There are lots. I mean, there are Americans today, many, many Americans, probably, I hope, a majority of Americans who would at least admit, if not vocally affirm, that the way the indigenous people who lived in what is now the United States were treated was unacceptable, was an atrocity, was genocidal, was all the bad things you could think of. That was inexcusable, right? But there are still some who don't feel that way, who feel like, well, you know, they were just doing what they had to do. Like there are all kinds of excuses for it. And that's in our country's own history. And a lot of Americans look at what Israel is doing to Palestine and they think, yeah, that's what you do. So I think that's part of it as well. Neil, I've noticed that there are no street dogs, cats, targs on any planet. Do you think that all societies have become more progressive about our non-human companions, or do you believe it's more of a production issue? Thanks in advance for your reply. Well, obviously it's a production issue. It's always a production issue when it comes right down to it. Or not always, but often. But it is kind of fun to imagine, like, you know, maybe the most successful broad-based diplomatic agency in the Star Trek galaxy is the Humane Society, right? Like maybe there's an interplanetary humane society in the world of Star Trek where even when the various galactic powers are opposed to one another or at war with one another, they are still able to work together to, you know, to make sure that all of the various animals have been spayed or neutered and are put into good, you know, are put into shelters and adopted out to good homes. Like, you know, the Klingons and the humans, they might hate each other a lot of the time, but they'll work together for the animals. Like there's a line, you know, maybe that explains it. But I mean, yeah, the real answer is it's a production issue, or it's just something that the producers never thought of or never thought about because it didn't matter to whatever stories they were telling. Oasis, Steve, who do you think is an underrated character that more people should appreciate? For me, I would go with Scarecrow / Dr. Crane in the Nolan Batmans, especially in The Dark Knight. Nolan didn't have to bring Scarecrow back for that one scene, but it worked out so well. Cillian Murphy just absolutely nailed that role. An underrated character that more people should appreciate. I mean, I guess I don't have to stay with Batman because you said character, not Batman character, but because you did mention a Batman character, the first one that comes to mind is from the comics, Jean-Paul Valley, Azrael. I always liked Azrael. I know a lot of people didn't like that he took over for Batman in the Nightfall saga, but I thought that was a really good story. And obviously he was never going to be there permanently. And like the fact that he was a shitty Batman was part of the story. Like you weren't supposed to want him to keep the job. I think a lot of comic book readers at the time were like, this guy sucks. He's a bad Batman. It's like, yeah, you're not supposed to want him to keep the job. You're supposed to want Bruce to come back and reclaim the mask, right? Like that's the story. And then he got his own comic for a while, and Denny O'Neil wrote it. And for the first couple of years, I think Barry Kitson did the art, and Barry Kitson, an amazing comic book artist. So I mean, a lot of people don't look back on it fondly. And I think the character did kind of get lost eventually. They kind of started changing things and making things a little too complicated. And he never really was able to find like an identity that allowed him to establish himself in the broader sort of supporting cast of Batman characters. But I always liked Azrael. I always liked Jean-Paul, so he would be my choice. Again, just off the top of my head, I'm sure there are a million better examples, most of which have nothing to do with Batman. But just off the top of my head, because yours was a Batman, mine was a Batman character as well. Azrael, Jean-Paul Valley. As Bats. Jan, I just watched an interview with your Senator Van Hollen, speaking out about the genocide in Gaza and our complicity in the horror. He is a true standout, speaking truth, and I thank your state for sending him to the Senate. We need more like him. Query, of the terrible members of the current cabinet, which do you think is the worst? My pick was Hegseth for obvious reasons, because he is in charge of the most powerful military in the world. Last month, I replaced him with the fake RFK after the disgusting rant about autism. But today, my pick is Besant, the only treasurer in the history of economics who says, who cares when asked about the downgrade of our credit rating? As long as POTUS can be bribed by UAE, etc., it's all good. He was bribed by Qatar, not the UAE, but give it time. I'm sure I'm sure the UAE will bribe him at some point. Unless he has also been bribed by the UAE and I just missed it, which is also entirely possible. Worst cabinet pick. I think I would have to go with RFK Jr. Yeah, I mean, you're so spoiled for choice with the Trump administration. Like, if the question is who's the worst cabinet member, I mean, throw a dart and you'll find an appropriate choice. But I would have to say RFK Jr. for the autism thing, just the fact that the guy in charge of the National Department of Health is just a complete crank and kook and conspiracy theorist when it comes to a lot of things, but particularly when it comes to health related stuff. Like, he is almost literally the worst person that could have gotten that job. And it's embarrassing and also incredibly dangerous that he has it. So I would choose RFK Jr. Maiku Wataharu, silly question, but do you have a favorite TV blooper outtake that you enjoy? My favorite one of all time is from Babylon 5 when Sheridan asks, where's General Haig? And Bruce McGill replies, General Haig is doing Deep Space Nine. Good old Bruce McGill. Jack Dalton from MacGyver. I love Bruce McGill. My favorite outtake. There's one that I used to really like that I don't like as much anymore, because it includes some really homophobic language, which I guess was not as looked down upon when it was made, but is quite rightly looked down on now. But I forget the name of the show. I always forget the name of the show, but it was a kids show in the 80s, and it was two costumed characters, and one was Charlie the Owl and the other was Freddy the Frog. And they're shooting a scene where Charlie the Owl is kind of the older mentor character, and Charlie's doing his scripted lines with Freddy. He's like, Freddy, I want you to know that even though I've been a little rough on you, I really do like you. And Freddy goes, go fuck yourself, Charlie! And then goes off on this, again, unfortunately, kind of a homophobic rant against Charlie the Owl. Not all of it, but there's enough homophobia in it that it kind of spoils it. And like, oh man, I wish I hadn't done that. And it's not so much, I don't think it's so much a blooper as I think they planned it. Like, it was a planned outtake. Like, they did it to entertain the crew, I guess. Cause I mean, I think it's not like the guy who played Freddy the Frog just forgot his lines and went off on like this enraged rant against, because they were doing it in character. But anyway, other than that, some of the classic Star Trek ones are really funny. There's the one where it's the episode where I think it's the Roman episode, Bread and Circuses, where one of the big burly extras comes in and just picks up William Shatner while he and Nimoy are in like the dungeon set, and a guy just comes in and just scoops William Shatner up in his arms like a child and runs off the set with him. And Shatner's like, "This isn't how it was planned." That's funny. There's another one, actually, the episode that I did my retro review on this week, The Deadly Years. There was a very famous classic Trek blooper where they put William Shatner in the old man Kirk makeup, and it took like several hours to get him into that makeup. But then, and they were shooting other things as they were putting the makeup on him with the other actors, and the shoot ran long, and they ended up not having time to shoot the scenes with Shatner that they had planned to shoot. So he had put that makeup on for nothing. Like he had to just take it off and come back the next day and put it back on and shoot the stuff they had planned to shoot that day. So there's this really famous outtake of him in the old man Kirk makeup sitting on set, talking to the camera and yelling at Robert Justman, who was the producer of the show, basically blaming him for having to put this makeup on for no reason, take it off, and then come back the next day and put it back on. And it's really funny. Those are just a couple of the ones, again, just off the top of my head. John Burns. So JFK Jr. took a swim in a toxic runoff that was being cleansed in a river of holy water. Naturally, the typical knee-jerk ignorant response comes from the lame scream media. Okay, I've begun your next ranty Rantenstein video. You should be able to take it from here. Okay, I mean, I guess it was RFK Jr., not JFK Jr. JFK Jr. is dead. You feel better now? How do you think? You feel good about yourself? No. I don't know if I'm going to do a video about RFK Jr. swimming in the polluted river or not, but thank you for the prompt if I do decide to. Wrestling with my wrestling fandom. Meh. I've been there. Thanks for your honest yet sober thoughts on my last Ask Away query about my interaction with the current Republican leader. As I've said, I enjoy pro wrestling. 2 Ask-Aways ago, you gave a wonderful explanation of pro wrestling and its origins. Associated with this, I enjoy listening to Jim Cornette's 2 podcasts, Jim Cornette Experience and Cornette's Drive-Thru. I wish they were in video form. Do you enjoy listening to his podcasts? He prefers kayfabe be kept, as do I. Ironically, though, in the preface of his graphic novel, Jim Cornette presents behind the curtain real pro wrestling stories. He, in detail, explains pro wrestling and its origins. Have you read that novel? Now for the meh aspect. I don't like the press scrums, which both companies hold after PLEs. I want my beliefs suspended. P.S. On Peacock, is there any way to watch entire story arcs like the beginning of the NWO until Starrcade 97 when it should have ended without having to find and start every program? I do listen to Jim Cornette's podcasts. I do mostly enjoy them. I like Cornette, but there are times when the fact that he is a white guy from the South, a middle-aged white guy, I guess an almost senior citizen now from the South, comes through and he'll say something that really a person with his generally left-leaning progressive politics should know better than to think or to say. But he's still really sexist. He is not nearly as racist as he used to be. He's still a little racially insensitive every now and then, but it feels like he has made some improvements in that area. Especially since the last time he got fired for saying something racist, which I think was only 4 years ago. So he's a work in progress. But no, he's still really sexist and really dismissive of women's wrestling, which is, every once in a while he'll say something and I'll just have to take a break. I'll just be like, no, I'm just not going to listen to this. And then I get bored and I go back and I wonder what Cornette's talking about. So I have a very complex relationship with him, but in terms of his view of the wrestling business and how wrestling should be approached and presented, I more or less agree with him. I mean, his vision of professional wrestling, except for the sexist dismissal of women's wrestling, is pretty much my own as well. And yeah, I've read a little bit of Behind the Curtain. I haven't read the whole thing. I think I have it on my Kindle. I have the digital version of it. I haven't read the whole thing. And I agree with you about press scrums. I don't think they really accomplish anything. And there are, I know Peacock and the WWE section of Peacock allows you to go through entire story arcs for certain things. I don't know if the NWO is one of those or not. And if it is, I'm not sure what all it includes. But I do know that they have like playlists organized by topic where you can watch, like an entire, like I think they, like last year they did one about the bloodline stuff. So you could watch like the important segments of like all of the 2 or 3 year plus bloodline saga that culminated with Cody winning the title from Roman at WrestleMania last year. They do have that, but I don't know if the NWO is one of those or not. Although I agree with you, Starrcade 97 is where the NWO storyline should have ended completely. That should have been the end of the NWO, and everybody should have moved on to other stuff after that. I agree with you 100% about that. The exhausted some random geek who hates capitalism. Here is my pinned Blue Sky post from May 14th, and I forgot to link that in the description, but there it is on screen. I'm basically flat broke and don't get paid until the day of this ask away. While Joanna desperately needs money for food, her power bill, and pain medication, and she will soon get only $1,000 a month instead of $1,500 because her trans NB son will graduate high school. And for all of the 8 years I've known Joanna, she begs online in order to live. I stopped giving a fuck and will just answer honestly when folks ask, "How are you, Jonathan?" No more all right just for small talk. I will answer, I'm flat broke and my friends desperately need money in order to live because capitalism is killing them. Except that capitalism isn't killing my friends, as I've been told by a liberal. Well, fuck me and my friends then. Joanna needs like $1,500 each and every month, and if I don't give her the money she needs, I feel like she suffers. She has gone 6 days without eating before. That is outrageous. And next question from Geek, who is both a patron and a channel member, so has the option of submitting 2 questions if they wish. Now for Lina Quinn and Naz the Nico. They go the money they need to cover they got the money they need to cover their emergency. They're still incredibly stressed, for they might need to move in less than 6 months, might not, might 2 in a year. It is all a mess, and capitalism is slowly killing them. And they haven't gotten the money back for Naz's SSI. Speaking of SSI, Phoenix was denied SSI again, despite their lawyer feeling good about the last court appearance too. The denial doesn't help Phoenix's depression. They said maybe those in power are right. I shouldn't exist. Isn't capitalism great? That if you are not productive, you are useless to society? Like how terrible it is that folks with autism can't pay taxes. But socialism is wrong, apparently, at least according to a video a liberal shared with me, a video that quoted a pro-slavery conservative philosopher. If socialism is wrong and there is no alternative to capitalism, then my friends are forever fucked. They have to suffer in the meantime, I guess. All of this is absolutely outrageous, and I would just encourage people to check out the links that Geek always shares in the chat to help out these friends of ours, and also charitylinks.page, which is always linked in the video description of these live streams. And I will also remind you about it at the end of the show. If you can possibly help out the people that Geek is talking about here, please, please, please consider doing that. Matthias via YouTube. Hi, Steve. Do you think that Trump has demonstrated that in general presidents have too much power, actual and presumed, and that their power and actions are not sufficiently scrutinized in joint sessions of Congress? At the POTUS's joint sessions seem to consist solely of the ruler talking to the ruled, with the ruled, the other 2 branches, not permitted to talk and only permitted to express disapproval by not clapping. It seems arranged to assert the mistaken view that the POTUS and their administration sit regally above Congress, SCOTUS, and everyone else, and sit so high that the other branches can only either scrutinize the envoys the president sends, i.e., the cabinet and the solicitor general, or instead try to seek an audience with the president at the White House. In my opinion, Trump would be less able to ignore the real-world concerns that constituents raise to their congressmen if those congressmen could subject him to the same direct and extensive questioning as his envoys receive. I mean, it reminds me of every once in a while there is the suggestion that the president should have to do something like prime minister's questions in the UK. But then There are sort of separation of powers questions about that, because the president would presumably have to voluntarily agree to do it. I don't know if Congress could compel the president to come and answer their questions, although maybe they could try. It might end up in the courts. Because like the State of the Union address, officially that is Congress inviting the president to do that. I mean, it's a tradition. Every president does it every year, and Congress always invites the president every year to do it. But I suppose if one year a president just said, you know what, I'm not doing a State of the Union, like that would be it, because it's not mandatory, it's invited. I mean, there is something in the Constitution about the president does have to update Congress or update the people on like the state of affairs, but there's nothing saying that that has to be a speech to a joint session of Congress. The fact that it is a speech to a joint session of Congress is just a tradition that doesn't have to be continued if the president doesn't want to. But no, I agree with you. I do think your general question of is the president too powerful, or is the president allowed to seem too powerful? Yes. I mean, the idea is the president is supposed to be powerful. We are supposed to have a strong chief executive with enough authority to get certain things done, but the executive branch is supposed to be co-equal with the legislative and judicial branches. Like the executive branch is not supposed to be in charge of the other two branches. And yet, and especially with Trump in charge and with Congress, with the Republican majority of Congress behaving so fawningly and deferentially to him, for all practical purposes, that is what we have. We have a president who is not co-equal with Congress and the Supreme Court, but a president who thinks that he is in charge of them and that they should do what he wants because he's the president. And that's a problem. Faragrim, do you think our country can come back from what it's going through? I find it hard to remain optimistic as I watch the right-wing side of this country just permit our president to take a sledgehammer to our political norms and customs, all while paying lip service to the Constitution, which they have actively abandoned. Yes, we can come back from this. Other countries have come back from even worse than this. Let's not forget, Germany used to be run by Nazis, like the original Nazis. And it took Germany a lot of hardship, a lot of death, and a lot of destruction. It took Germany losing a world war and then many years of reconstruction and recovery after that. But eventually Germany came back. Germany recovered. And other countries who have been through similar periods have done so as well. So can we? Yes. Will we at some point? Probably. Yeah, and I think so and hope so. But the question is, how bad will things get before that turnaround starts? How long will it take? And what will it cost us in the meantime? You know? So, yeah, but I mean, do I think we can come back from this? Yes, I do. But that's not as optimistic as it sounds if you think about what it's going to take. Mental ward. As far as I can tell, everything seen in Star Trek occurred in the Alpha Quadrant until Q's flicking the Enterprise into the Borg's neighborhood, which is the Delta Quadrant. Later, we got introduced to the Gamma Quadrant in DS9. Even later, we see a whole new galaxy in Discovery. But what's in the Beta Quadrant? I don't recall it ever being mentioned, but maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention. I think there might be one or two lines of dialogue in the various shows that establish particular planets as being located in the Beta Quadrant. I know that Sulu mentions that the mission that he is returning from as captain of the Excelsior at the beginning of Star Trek VI was in Beta Quadrant. But other than that, it's not really mentioned a lot. I feel like the convention is that when characters talk about the Alpha Quadrant, they're also sort of implicitly including the Beta Quadrant, because that's the half of the galaxy where all the established Star Trek places are located, you know? So I feel like they say Alpha Quadrant, but they really mean Alpha and Beta Quadrant. And as to where, you know, which planets are located in which quadrant. I really don't know. I'm sure there are technical manuals and, like, officially licensed star maps that place things in particular areas, but I don't know what they are because I don't really care. But I do know that, yeah, you're right though. The Alpha Quadrant gets a lot more mention than the Beta Quadrant. The Beta Quadrant is just kind of like, and they're here too. So, but Sulu definitely mentioned it by name at the start of Star Trek 6. David Colby has been sentenced to 100 lashes for failing to salute. Well, I hope that you'll salute next time. I hope you've learned your lesson. Master and Commander, the nautical adventure series about the iconoclastic Captain Jack Aubrey and his prickly logical surgeon, Dr. Stephen Maturin, was started in the 1970s, meaning that despite the fact that it seems like Kirk and Spock should have been inspired by Jack and Stephen, the answer is actually the exact opposite. So, what scenes should Star Trek steal back from the Master and Commander series? 1, the bit where Stephen finds a sloth and Jack gets it drunk. 2, the time Stephen decides to keep 80,000 bees in Jack's cabin. They immediately escape. 3, Jack always earns a bunch of money at the end of a book, loses it all at the beginning of the next, so he has to go to sea again. 4, the time Jack breaks his rotted mast on purpose to force a quartermaster to give him a good one. Or 5, the bit where Stephen, captured by the French and kept as a guest, gets into a prolonged debate about the health benefits of getting really mad, and so starts insulting one another to test the hypothesis. I'm thinking about transposing these scenes onto existing Star Trek casts, and I don't know. The first 2 seem like Riker shit. Like, can you imagine if it was Picard and Riker? And although Jack got it drunk, so maybe that would be a Spock and Kirk one, because Jack is the captain. So Spock finds a sloth and Kirk gets it drunk. And then the second one would be Riker decides to keep 80,000 bees in Picard's cabin, and then they escape. I can see those. I can see those happening. Brian McKinley snaps fingers and appears complete with a mariachi band. Very impressive. Hi, Steve. I loved your video on Andor and its importance, though I definitely enjoyed the series more than you. I loved seeing some adult ideas finally entertained in the Star Wars universe. However, my question is about a different series altogether. I want to know, out of Buffy or Angel, which series do you like more? Also, who's your favorite characters from that universe? Mine are Spike from Buffy and Wesley from Angel, because they both had such dynamic character arcs. Those are really good picks. Spike would probably be my favorite from Buffy as well. And I mean, he showed up in the last season of Angel too. I think Spike is a fantastic character. I like that they gave him broadly a similar character arc to Angel, but did it in a very different way. And so it didn't feel like they were repeating themselves, even though a lot of the same beats of Spike's story are similar to Angel's. And I mean, James Marsters was just great as that character. So yeah, Spike would be my favorite from Buffy as well. As for my favorite from Angel, I'm tempted to say Wesley, because he did change so much. Although I also think they did a good job with Gunn. I thought Gunn had a really interesting character arc. And Fred as well. I mean, I'm talking about like a tragic story. Fred meeting the fate that she meets, and then keeping Amy Acker on the show playing a different character, playing Illyria, which was just brilliant and worked so much better than I thought it would. I don't know, when the show was actually on and they did that where they swapped out Fred for Illyria, I was like, I don't know, is this going to work? And it worked. It was great. So I don't know. It's tough to pick with Angel. It's such a great show. I don't know. I might have to agree with you on both points. I might have to say Wesley. Wesley was great. Agent Meister, who would appreciate if someone in the chat would help him perform surgery on a torpedo. Fascinating. Peldor Joy, bearded one. A couple of askaways ago, you mentioned that Commander Riker was your favorite character in all of Trek. I'd love to know why that is. And do you have a favorite Riker moment? not necessarily a favorite Riker episode, but a particular moment from either TNG, the TNG movies, or God help us, the Picard series that really epitomize the character in your eyes? Also, is there a moment when you feel the writers let the character down badly? Finally, what's the weather in or around the Hagerstown area for the last while? I live in Ireland, a country renowned for its rain, and we have been getting sunshine, blue skies, and averaging 70 degrees for over a month now. It's a good thing we're not made of ice cream. Now, where's that damn torpedo? Weather around here has been good. The last week or so, it's been cool. It's been maybe in the 50s or 60s Fahrenheit, with a fair amount of rain, not like a torrential amount, but a little bit, every day, and a couple days without any. But it's been nice. It's been what I before climate change fucked everything up. What I would generally think of as typical, like mid to late spring weather. It's been nice. Okay, Riker. So, favorite Riker moment. Yeah, actually, I'm pretty sure it's the same. It's the moment that is depicted in the picture of Riker that I still keep in my wallet, which, as I have explained before, began as a joke in a Stuffy video, where I in the Stuffy video, I took out a photograph of Commander Riker from my wallet as a part of the joke in the video. And then I decided to just keep it in my wallet in real life. So I still carry this picture of Commander Riker in my wallet. And that is from the episode In Theory, which is the episode where Data gets the girlfriend. And it's the scene where Data is going around the ship asking the various other cast members for dating advice. And Riker gives Data his advice, and he says, "Oh, when it really works between two people, it's like nothing you've ever experienced before." And it's really incredible. And Data says, "Well, like, what sort of things can happen? Like, how far can it go?" And Riker gets that grin on his face, and he says, "That's what I'm hoping you'll find out for yourself." That's my favorite Riker moment. Because he's being horny, but he's also being a good friend and a warm, sort of comrade to his shipmate. It's just great. It's funny and it's kind of heartwarming at the same time. That's my favorite Riker moment. In terms of, but there is actually a nice Riker moment during the Picard series. There's a couple of them, really. The first time Picard and Riker see each other in the Picard series in season 1, when Picard goes to Riker's house. The hug is really nice when Riker sees him and he gives him that big bear hug. That's a nice moment. And in season 3, it doesn't really epitomize the character, but it's just a really funny moment, and it gives Jonathan Frakes a chance to kind of show off his comic timing. It's when it's either the last episode. I think it's the last episode, maybe the next to last. I don't know. It's the episode when they're on that fucking Borg ship. I think it's the last episode, and Riker and Worf are on the Borg ship, and Picard goes off on his own to go rescue his Locutus Jr. son. And there's a moment where Riker goes to pick up Worf's sword, and he immediately drops it because it's incredibly heavy. And he just has this moment where he goes like, Jesus, because he did not expect it to be that heavy. And he realizes, like, you've been carrying this thing around and it's this heavy, and you've been carrying it around for like 30 years. That's fucking crazy. That was a nice moment. A moment when the writers let the character down badly. Not so much letting the character down, but letting the story down for the sake of the character. It's the episode, A Matter of Perspective, which is the episode where Riker is accused of murder and also accused, let us not forget, of sexually assaulting a woman. And then it turns out, apparently, he was innocent. He didn't do it. And it was just a misunderstanding, or maybe the woman was vindictively accusing him of something that she knew he didn't do, or whatever it was. Riker's in the clear. He didn't do it. That's a really good episode, but that element of Riker being accused of sexual assault by a woman who is claiming that he attempted to rape her, and then that's just completely brushed aside. As well, whatever whether she was lying or not, it definitely didn't happen. So anyway, on to the next mission. I really don't like that. And I feel like it doesn't necessarily let the character down, but it has the character being accused of something and then exonerated for it at the expense of the story and the woman, the female character accusing him of it. And then it's just, it's TNG. Next week, it's on to the next mission, and we just forget this ever happened. That leaves kind of a bad taste in my mouth. So that would be the moment that I think that's the closest I can think of the writers letting the character down. The Grumpy Monkey. How now, Steve? I love Ask Away, partly because it goes out on the only day in a fortnight where I get to stay in bed. Most of my week requires me to be up at 4 or 5 a.m., but due to my circumstances, not least of all time difference, it's Saturday morning before I get to enjoy you answering questions submitted by the great and the good from your members and subscribers. I do so in my mother's house, and I might get up to have a quick breakfast she lovingly prepared the night before. Not long after, though, it's back to bed with a steaming cup of joe to enjoy the show. I may doze off while you're in full spate, which has contributed to some interesting dreams, like the time you were doing Ask Away from inside a washing machine outside my old high school. And if the weather is anyway nice, I might listen to the show while watching the sunrise over the Cork and Kerry Mountains in southwestern Ireland. No question, just a small missive to say thank you for always adding to the gaiety of my weekend. Well, thank you in return for that amazing description of what sounds like a really nice morning. And I'm glad I can be a very small part of that with you. That's really nice. That sounds wonderful. Jim P. Hi, Steve. As you are probably aware, this administration continues its assault on higher education. Today, Thursday, they just revoked Harvard's ability to enroll international students even after freezing $2.7 billion in research grants. As someone who works in higher education, this is just another chilling example of the lengths they will go to make universities toe their line. It's good that schools like Harvard are standing up to them, but not all schools have Harvard's resources. I'm not sure what the question is, outside of how much more of this can we survive. Well, like I said in response to a previous question, I do think we as a country can survive it. But the question is, how many of us as individuals will not survive it, and how many institutions, like for instance, universities that can't stand up to Trump's bullying, will not survive it. I mean, that's the real danger. Regimes like the one that we have now and like the one that Trump and his supporters are obviously hoping to build from this point as things continue to get worse. Like those regimes historically don't tend to last. They don't tend to endure very long. There are exceptions. So it's not a question of, things are just going to be this bad forever. It's a question of, okay, if things are this bad now and we allow them to continue to get worse, how long is it going to be before we finally start to move back in the right direction? And I mean, and that is a very sobering thought, but as far as Harvard, I agree with you. It's good that Harvard is standing up for them. I saw just today that a federal judge issued a court order to stop the attempt to ban Harvard from enrolling international students. Like the courts are trying to hold back the administration's efforts, as they have done repeatedly since Trump was inaugurated, and hopefully that is a court battle that we will win. And I'm glad that Harvard is fighting it. And hopefully if Harvard wins it, that will be a victory for every other university that Trump might try to do this to. Andy Lawler and his family are feeling absolutely destroyed. Hey, Steve, I don't really have a question this time around, despite the many things going on in the world. My family experienced a great loss this evening, Thursday, as I'm writing this. Our dog, Izzy, crossed the Rainbow Bridge. We adopted her as a 2-year-old from our county humane society, Adopt, Don't Buy, Save a Life, in 2012. She was my youngest daughter's childhood pet and the last surviving childhood pet of my adult daughters. And to Izzy, the sun and moon revolved around my wife. Since I was 7, the amount of time I've lived without a dog can be measured in mere weeks. She was 15, which is amazing for a German Shepherd Rottweiler mix. And we know it's not a tragedy. This loss is hitting us quite hard, though. Izzy was the goodest girl. Her memory will live on in all of us. I just want to encourage those of you with pets to scritch their bellies a bit longer and maybe give them an extra treat or two in honor of my old lady. Thanks and have a great weekend, everybody. And thank you so much for sharing that. And my condolences for the loss of Izzy. Um, I have only had, I've had one dog and one cat in my life. My dog was Star, who I got when I was 5 and who lived to be 16 and died when I was 21. And she was just the greatest. She was a black Labrador retriever, and she was the greatest. She was particularly close with my mom, but she was close with all of us. Like she loved all of us. And we all loved her. And I miss her to this day. And then, of course, my cat, Audie, who many of you saw and can still see if you go back far enough in my videos on this channel, because we had her, it was my wife and I had her when I was still married, and she was our cat. And she also lived to be 15 or 16. Like, she had a nice long life. So like you said about Izzy, it's, in a sense, it's not a tragedy because they had long, happy lives filled with love. But it's, you know, it's always tragic when it's tragic for us when we don't have them with us anymore, you know? So yeah, I know how it feels. And I would echo your plea to, if you're planning on getting a pet, to adopt from a shelter, if at all possible. That's definitely the way to go. And yeah, thanks for telling us about Izzy. And I'm really, really, really sorry to hear that. I have another friend who recently had a dog die as well. And it's, I mean, the good that they bring to your life, it makes it worth it. You know, like the grief at the end is outweighed by the joy that they bring you in their life, but it doesn't make the grief any easier when you're going through it. So anyway, thanks for telling us about Izzy. Jackdaw Coloius. Hi, Steve. I hope you're doing well. If you'll forgive a little bit of a soapbox, you and I are about the same age, and I assume the same is true of a decent portion of your audience. You all might want to keep an eye on your elderly parents and their finances. Scammers are eager to prey on people who've built up some savings, but are beginning to decline in judgment and cognition. My mother had her savings account wiped out a couple weeks ago by a fake lottery scam. So, you know, just one more thing going on in the world of 2025. Since you make your living online, do you have any safety tips to share? Take care, everybody. I mean, what I have told my dad, and my dad is not yet to the point, he's not elderly, but he is a senior, you know, and he doesn't really, I mean, he has a cell phone and, you know, but he doesn't really, he's not very technically oriented. So all I have told him was, if you ever get a text message that has a link in it, don't ever click the link, or don't ever, you know, tap the link, just delete it. Like, especially if it's like, and if you get a text message from someone claiming to be me, but it's not from my number that's in your contacts, or, you know, even if it is, because, you know, sometimes people can spoof someone else's number, even if it is from my number, if it doesn't look like anything I've ever written you, if it doesn't sound like something I would say, like I've texted him enough that he knows what one of my text messages look like. If it's something like that, and it has a link in it that says, click this, you know, like, don't ever do that. Delete that immediately. And that's really, I mean, there's a lot of the basic advice for how to avoid scammers boils down to that. If you get a text message or an email from someone that you don't know, or from something that you're not expecting, or that even if it even seems a little fishy, just delete it immediately. Don't interact with it at all. Don't click on the link. Don't open any files. Just get rid of it immediately. You know, if you actually owe money to the government, right? If you actually have unpaid tolls or unpaid fines or unpaid taxes or, whatever the scammer is trying to scare you into believing, the government's not going to send you a random text message. The government's not going to send you a random email full of misspellings. Like, they're going to contact you. Believe me, I've owed money to the government before. They send it to you in the mail, right? They send it to you in the mail. And it's very official, right? They don't just leave you a random voicemail or send you a random text message. So just be careful and be suspicious, and don't interact with anything that you receive that even seems a little fishy. Just delete it right away to be safe. Matthew, hi, I'm a 41 male Navy vet. I look forward to this show. My dad and sister have recently jumped into the MAGA cult. Every time I see my dad, he's further right. In 2016, he was a Bernie supporter, now an aspiring fascist, 66. It bothers me a lot hearing my father talk like MAGA. Do you have any similar experience? Fortunately, not with anyone that I am close to. But yes, from people in my family, from when I was married, from people in my wife's family, from friends, people I knew in high school, people I used to think were okay, and then it turns out, oh, okay, yeah, it sucks. It's disillusioning. It used to be you would find out that someone you knew and respected had some kind of like weird, wacky belief, like they thought the JFK assassination was a conspiracy, or they thought that the moon landings were a hoax or something. And like, it was annoying and it was kind of jarring because you're like, what the fuck? Like, I thought you were a smart person. Like, I thought, well, how can you possibly believe this? But now it's that sort of thing, but it's way more harmful. Like, there's all these other beliefs and assumptions loaded in with it, with the Trump thing, because a lot of the belief and a lot of the following of Trump is pretty much cult behavior and conspiracy theorist behavior, but there are all these added dangers to it because he's the president and because the people that he energizes and motivates are in some cases, like some really dangerous people who have really, really dark beliefs and ideas and things that they would like to accomplish. So, I mean, it sucks. It's, thankfully I don't have that experience with my father, who is a few years older than you say your father is here. But I mean, it's a terrible experience. I'm sorry you have to go through that. I'm sorry for anybody who has to go through that. It sucks. Maggie Sermonara. Hi, Steve. I hope you are well. Sorry about the abbreviated question about music last time. Looked up and it was 5:57. It was a panic question. Very sorry that I missed the live chat discussing music after. Following your 5 favorite artists, my fairly recently adopted 7-year-old Torty projectile vomited her entire dinner. Had her 7 months, first time she ever tossed her cookies. I assure you it was not a statement about your musical preferences. Well, I'll take your word for that. If you like Counting Crows, and I know you love our state, you should check out Raining in Baltimore. You've probably heard Rain King from their first release, but I would also humbly suggest Anna Begins, Murder of One, and Omaha. I'd say the whole CD, but I don't want to push. Loved your video on Bruce. Do you have a favorite song from Born to Run? I recently made a post about dancing in the moonlight because of the specific memory it sparks from childhood. Is there a song that always illuminates a certain memory for you? Thank you as always. You are the best. Well, thank you very much. Favorite song from Born to Run? I would say Thunder Road, but there are actually versions of Thunder Road other than the original album version that I think are better than the album version, as much as I love the original Thunder Road record. Jungle Land. Yeah, I think Jungle Land might be my favorite track on Born to Run. Because like there are Thunder Road is my favorite song off of that album, but that record of it is not my favorite version of it. Like I really like the sad stripped down acoustic versions of Thunder Road. Bruce does a really good one that he plays in concert sometimes, and that he did when he did VH1 Storytellers, where it's him at the piano. It's just Bruce and the piano singing this slow, melancholy version of Thunder Road, and it's just fucking beautiful. And then oh, who does the who's in who, oh, I can't think of her name now. Sarah Watkins. Sarah Watkins does an acoustic cover of Thunder Road that is just exquisite. Um, a song that always illuminates a certain memory. Yes, Don't Dream It's Over by Crowded House. That was my first favorite song as a child. For some reason, just something about the music just grabbed me. And every time I hear that song, I'm vaulted back to my childhood. I've loved that song for probably close to 40 years. I think it came out what in 87, I think, and I heard it on the radio probably not long after that. So yeah, I've loved that song for almost my entire life. MW Ridger needs more Superman in their life. Oh no, I really enjoyed that new James Gunn Superman trailer, but then all the Snyderlings told me it was woke. Can you believe that? A woke Superman? Can you believe that Lois dared not give Clark, her boyfriend, preferential treatment in an interview? Can you believe he got slightly upset? A Superman isn't supposed to show any emotion besides anger. And Superman is going against the U.S. government. Unheard of. Never seen that in a Superman story before. And he has a dog. A dog, Steve. How woke. Everyone knows that dogs are woke. And that costume, woke. Somehow, I'm honestly not clear on what is woke with the costume, but they whine about it a lot, so it must be true. What was your takeaway from the Superman trailer? Not woke enough. I love the Superman trailer. I'm really looking forward to the movie. I am very, very hopeful that the movie will be as good as the trailer makes it look. As I always say with trailers, you don't know until you see the movie. The trailer will make the movie look like the most amazing thing you've ever seen, and then you see the movie and it is just a wet fart, right? Like you never know until you see the movie. You cannot judge by a trailer. But I trust James Gunn. I really like the cast that he has assembled. The trailer does make it look good. So we'll see. I am hopeful. I am very hopeful. I love the way it looks. I love what seems to be the tone of it. Although again, you can't really judge until you've seen the whole thing. But I'm, as I said about the teaser trailer when they released that last year, after watching it, I was more excited about seeing the movie than I was before. And that's the job of a trailer. You should watch a trailer, and when you're done watching it, you should be more interested in the movie than you were before you watched it. And that has been the effect of the Superman trailers on me. So I am really, really looking forward to it. And I hope it's even woker than they think it is. I hope it's the most woke fucking Superman movie ever. I hope it's so woke that all the Snyder cultists, just their heads fucking explode in the theaters. That's what I hope. Air One Fire is working his way through MacGyver, and it's your fault. I will take full blame for that. Hi, Steve. I've been doing very well the past month, and especially the last 11 days. I may finally have a routine. I get up as early as I can and finish work as soon as I can, usually before noon. I'm on top of everything, haven't had a backlog or associated panic since I started. As suspected, I'm averaging 3 hours of focused work a day. This means I won't be able to catch your midnight streams from now on, assuming this keeps going. Getting up early is the hardest part. I set a goal for 4 a.m. tomorrow, 3 a.m. to catch a stream, which is so late it goes around and becomes early. How do you do it consistently? And can you motivate me? What are your top reasons to wake up very early? I'll watch in the morning. Best wishes. I think you already know the best reason, which is you get your day started earlier and you get the work done that you need to do that day over with earlier. So you have more time and more of the day left to do things that aren't work related that you still might want to do or to just relax. I get up 4 a.m. would be a little early for me. I get up at 5 a.m. every morning during the week. On the weekends, I sleep in. Um, but during the week, I get up at 5 a.m. and the first thing I do is work out. And then after that, I have a cup of coffee and I get to work. Whatever I'm doing that day, usually writing, sometimes editing, depending on what stage of my workflow I'm in that day. Um, on Thursdays, it's get up, have a cup of coffee, and watch whatever Star Trek episode I'm doing for a retro review that day, because the retro reviews are 1 day videos where I watch the episode I'm reviewing, and then I write the review, and then I shoot it and edit it and release it all in 1 day. Um, so it depends on what I'm doing, but getting up at 5 a.m. is a big advantage because I get the day started, and that's a big part of it. And in terms of motivation for how to do it or why to do it, I think I said this before a couple weeks ago to a question about motivation, and I used my morning workout as an example of it, where I said if there's something that you should do or you want to do, but you don't really like, you're resistant to it, just throw yourself into it. Just do it. Just start doing it before you have a chance to talk yourself out of it. And I have found the best strategy for waking up in the morning, because I set my alarm for 5 a.m., but that doesn't mean I'll necessarily get out of bed at 5 a.m. I might hear that alarm and go, ugh, fuck that, and I might end up sleeping in, which I don't want to do, but at that moment I might want to do. You know what I'm saying? And the best way around that is, as soon as you hear that alarm, just get the fuck up. Turn on the light, get out of bed. Boom. Don't give yourself a chance to fall back asleep. And that has been and then once you do that enough, see, it's still sometimes a challenge. Like for me, there are still mornings where the alarm goes off and I lay there and I think, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get up. Why can't I just sleep in? Like I still struggle with that. But the best way around it to me is just to fucking say, all right, let's go, let's do this, and get out of bed and just get moving. And if you do that enough, it becomes a habit. It just becomes part of your routine. And there will still be times where you'll struggle with it, but they won't be as bad. And they'll be easier to get past if you make it part of your routine. If it becomes, this is just what I do every day. I get up at this time. I do this. I do this. I do this. That to me is the best solution to that problem. Kara, aka the Talking Nerd. Hi, Steve. Hope you are well. I know that you're not over fond of Voyager, and even I will admit that although I like it, some episodes are just dire. However, my question is, do you think there are any good eps of Voyager? Or do you think that the bad eps outweigh the good? Well, I mean, the answer to both questions is yes. For me, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Yes, I think there are quite a few good episodes of Voyager. Absolutely. I've talked many times about The Thaw, which I think is the best episode of Voyager. The Thaw is a great episode. I really like, what is it? I can't remember the title of it, but it's the one where they find the planet where time moves at a different rate, and like the image of the seeing Voyager in the sky above the planet, because time moves really faster, much faster on the planet than it does aboard Voyager. Like Voyager just being in orbit of this planet for a few hours changes the entire course of that civilization. And eventually they meet an astronaut who, like their whole space program was inspired by wanting to visit the ship in the sky. And it's a really good episode. It's a really good episode. And there are other good Voyager episodes from throughout the run. It's not as though every episode, and I've spoken very highly of the pilot. I think Voyager has maybe the best pilot episode of any Star Trek show. Caretaker is a really, really good pilot. So, yeah, there are some excellent Voyager episodes. There are more than a few very, very good Voyager episodes, but are they outweighed by the bad episodes? For me, they are. Yeah. Like, that's why I say Voyager on the whole is not a good show. It doesn't live up to its potential, which is considerable, because for me, there are fewer episodes that do take advantage of that potential than there are episodes that don't. So I think the answer to both your questions is yes. There are many good episodes of Voyager, but I also think the bad ones outweigh the good. Isaiah Taylor. So, Steve, what's your opinion of the 1997 disaster film Dante's Peak? It stars Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton as they attempt to survive a volcanic eruption in the town of Dante's Peak, Washington State. I watched it twice the other day, along with 1996's Twister, stoned, and I gotta admit that Dante's Peak is certainly more realistic and terrifying. The opening is emotionally traumatizing. The death of the grandma in the acid lake is horrifying, and the eruption and destruction of the town is edge of your seat gripping. It actually made me fascinated yet terrified about volcanoes. And yes, visiting Mount St. Helens is on my bucket list, along with the other volcanoes in the Cascades region. I also love the soundtrack. It's a mix of ominous and foreboding, too sweet and innocent. Ominous and foreboding, too sweet and innocent, like human powerlessness in the face of Mother Nature's unmatched power. I love movies like this. A volcano will not kill me for being black, autistic, or Palestinian, and I take comfort in that. Well, that is a very bleak but very true thing to say. Yes, Mother Nature will not discriminate against you based on any of those factors. It'll just kill you if you happen to be in the wrong place, and it won't matter what color you are, or whether you're autistic or not, or what country you're originally from or anything. So it's fair in that way, I guess. Dante's Peak is fine. I get the sense, Ken, you've talked about it before, that it's one of your favorites. It's not one of my favorites, but I enjoy it. You know, it's good, enjoyable, entertaining, late 90s kind of action cheese. I dig it. It's not something that I usually feel compelled to go back and watch, but I enjoy it. And, you know, Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton, you can't do much better than that. And it's fine. But that's about all I can say about it. But I'm glad you enjoy it. Here's another one from Maggie Sermonar. I believe you are both a member and a patron, Maggie. So this is permissible. Forgot something. I noticed the big brass bell behind you the other day. I'm curious about the story behind it. It's acquisition. My dad had one for years. He'd ring it outside at the new year. He gave it to me before he died. It's displayed nicely in my house as well. Took a photo, but didn't include it. Yeah, it's exactly the same. The black holder, the curve of it. I will be ringing mine in the streets, probably multiple locations, the day that greasy fucker dies. You know, now that you have said that, you have inspired me. Maybe I'll do the same thing. I don't actually know the story behind that bell. I know it belonged to my grandparents. I think my grandfather, although it's possible it belonged to Granny, to my grandmother. I'm not sure, but it's a schoolhouse bell, which sounds like the one that you have. It's an old schoolhouse bell, like the teacher at the one-room schoolhouse would ring to let the kids know it was time to come in and start school. I don't know exactly what its provenance is, but it's been there for many, 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 many years. And I cherish it because it was the property of my grandparents, and I love them and revere their memory. And this used to be their house, and I like to keep things around that remind me of them and that belonged to them. And that bell is one of those things. But yeah, I don't know the exact story behind it. I'll have to ask my dad next time I talk to him and see if he knows. I'm sure he knows. I'll have to ask him what the story is behind the schoolhouse bell. Russell. Hey, Steve. First part is just a rant. So 2 weeks ago, I told you about a senator trying to overturn the voters' decision on the minimum wage issue. Well, update, it failed 31-17. They needed 32 votes to win. They're trying again because of an absentee senator. If they succeed, they will cap the minimum wage to $30 an hour in the next 40 years. 40 years ago, minimum wage was $3.75. My folks' home costed them $28,500. Today, that home is listed as $267,000. How are people supposed to get ahead? It just makes me angry. That and the fact the people voted for the minimum wage to increase to $15 by 2026 without a cap. That's one that the voters voted to legalize weed in this state. Guess what? The Senate shut that down too. Where is democracy? Okay, sigh, rant done. I need an NYPD Blue question. What is your favorite Metavoy moment in the show? Mine is from the first episode. We meet Bobby. and Greg is given a case where he interviews it perfectly. Not sure you remember. It's a gross case involving a father-daughter. I think I remember that. My favorite Medavoy moment is the episode. Medavoy has a lot going on in there. I think it's the episode where Abby asks him if he wants to be a surrogate father for her and her girlfriend. And I think that's the same episode where Medavoy he brutalizes a suspect. Like I think he punches a suspect or he hits him with a phone book. Like he's a lot more violent with a suspect than he ever would be normally. And then after that happens, after he kind of breaks bad on a suspect, James, his partner, pulls him aside and is like, what's wrong with you? Like, are you okay? You've never done that before. And I think, is it that same episode or is it the next episode where he gets a confession out of a guy by like being super nice to him and hugging him? That whole sequence is what I'm thinking of. Medavoy's whole arc from being, unusually and unacceptably violent with a suspect and feeling really bad about it and kind of getting called out on it by James, and then going back in later with the exact opposite approach and being super nice to the guy and showing empathy to the guy and getting a confession and getting a hug as well. That's my favorite Medavoy moment. The progressive pessimist. So does the Dem Party or politics in general need formal or at least informal term limits? With multiple congressional folks passing even since January, it's becoming a real issue. Governors can postpone elections as much as they want to, technically, to disenfranchise voters. What do you think would push the Dems or folks in general to finally retire? A quote I found: "We are thankful for your service, but you don't need to die at your post." Yeah, I like that one. I've heard that one before. I am very much in favor of term limits for everybody and everything. I think the House of Representatives, the Senate, obviously the president already is. I think term limits are extremely important and should be imposed on all elected offices for exactly the reason you're referencing in your question, which is without them, there will always be politicians who hang on to the job beyond all reason and wind up, at a point where they are so entrenched in their position that I think they cease to be effective representatives for their constituents. Now, there are exceptions to that. Like I always talk about Ed Markey, Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts, who has been around forever and is still very effective. So he would be an exception. And there are other exceptions as well. But are there enough to justify not having term limits? I don't think so. So yeah, I don't know exactly what the limits should be for Congress. I feel like, especially for the House, where it's only a 2-year term, you would need to have the limits be far enough out that you would allow for the possibility of people getting reelected to a couple of terms at least, so they can generate the institutional knowledge that can then be passed on to newcomers as the generations roll on. But yeah, I think term limits would be a great thing. I don't think, and it's one of those reforms where I don't think that would solve all of our problems. I don't think any one single reform would solve all of our political problems in this country, but it would be a really, really good move in the right direction. It would improve a lot of things if there were rigid, somewhat draconian term limits imposed on elected officials across the board. Brian Baker, Steve, I want to ask you a question about society that you might not be able to answer. What is the objection to universal basic income and free medical care in the United States? I had cancer at the age of 18, and though I was able to be covered by my parents' insurance until I was 21, for the next 15 years, I was paying out of pocket for all medical expenses. I went into debt almost $300,000, and despite a college degree, I was unable to find employment because back in the 1980s, most companies would not cover my insurance costs because they were so high. The Constitution of the United States calls for the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And life would be a lot happier if medical expenses were not a for-profit endeavor. Your thoughts? Thanks for all your work and looking forward to seeing Strange New Worlds soon. Boy, so am I, buddy. Well, the argument against free medical care, and it's not a good argument. It's not an argument that I find remotely compelling, but the argument against free medical care specifically that I seem to encounter the most is that it would affect the quality of care. That having medical care, having medicine be a commodity that people have to pay for and is therefore affected by market forces, creates a pressure for that for the quality of that care to be higher, because then if other providers had lower quality care, they wouldn't make as much money as the providers with higher quality. It's the free market theory, which, as I think we know, doesn't work out in real life in every situation. And even if it did, there are certain things like healthcare, which is usually something that people are seeking, not because they have arbitrarily chosen to, but because they need it. There are certain things that shouldn't be treated as commodities because it's just wrong. It's just morally wrong to treat healthcare, which is a necessity, as a commodity that people can only access if they can afford to pay for it, or are willing to go into crippling debt for. But that's the argument, that somehow quality of care would be affected if it was just free to everybody. And there's a similar argument against universal basic income, that if you give people free stuff, then it will create a moral hazard, because they won't. If you give people too much free stuff, then they won't want to work. With universal basic income, I've also heard people try to claim that, well, it wouldn't work anyway. It wouldn't improve things the way advocates for it say that it would, so it's not worth even trying. There are people who say, well, we can't do it anyway because it would be too expensive. Again, I don't think these are compelling arguments. I have not heard an argument against universal basic income or universal health care that I have found remotely persuasive. But those are the basic arguments. Those are the main arguments that I hear. It would be too expensive. It would affect the quality of care. It's not good to give people free stuff, that sort of thing. I think it's all horseshit, but that's what people say. And final question from Anti-Pope Donkulus the First, Your Eminence, Your Holiness. Bless you, my child. Not actually my child. Some people fear that artificial intelligence poses a threat to humanity, envisioning scenarios where AI directly undermines or attacks our systems and infrastructure maliciously or unintentionally. I think there is some merit to that fear, but I think that AI, or rather our use of AI, will accelerate our annihilation by climate change due to its energy and water costs. The same goes for cryptocurrency. Anyhow, would you rather humanity be wiped out suddenly by an evil sentient AI, or be progressively cooked by AI slop? Would you rather be stomped to death by a giant AI-generated anti-Pope Donkulus I action figure with accessories, or a giant AI-generated Stephen G. Clenard Funko Pop? I'm going to go with being stomped to death by the Stephen G. Clenard Funko Pop, because I kick it old school like that. I remember you from back before you were an anti-Pope, and I remember you like that, and I appreciate that, and I have a little bit of nostalgia for that. Not saying that there's anything wrong with your anti-papacy so far. It's been excellent. But, I do have a certain wistful feeling about the old days. And also Funko Pops are cool. I'm not sick of them yet. I like them. I only have one, and I got it as a gift, but I have a Batman one back there. That's the only one I actually have. And honestly, I don't really want any more. Like, I don't want to collect them for myself. It's just nice that they exist, And I feel like being stomped by a Funko Pop, by a giant AI-generated Funko Pop, would probably be a quicker death, just based on the weight distribution and like the size of the head pressing down. I think it would be a quicker, more merciful death. So I would go with that. Well, that's it for the patron and member questions. Now, I'm going to turn my full attention to the live chat for the rest of the show in a moment. But first, before I do that, it is, one of my favorite parts, not that I don't love talking to you all, but one of my favorite parts of all of these Ask Away live streams is when I get to show you a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. Now, as always, I will tell you this will go live as a standalone YouTube short on this channel tomorrow, but you get to see it before anybody else right here on Ask Away. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this brand new Stuffy and Friends short. Oh my God.
What?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Percy Harper.
Who's that?
We went to school together. For 35 years, I've waited to have my revenge on Percy Harper. And now that day has finally come.
35 years? So when you say you went to school together, you're talking about elementary school?
That's right.
You were 10 years old 35 years ago. What could this person possibly have done to you that was so bad?
He finished 3rd place in the geography bee.
And?
And because he finished 3rd place, I finished 4th place.
And?
Okay, let me break it down for you. 1st place gets a blue ribbon. 2nd place gets a red ribbon. 3rd place gets a white ribbon. You know what 4th place gets?
A yellow ribbon?
Not in the geography bee in which I competed in 4th grade. In that geography bee, 4th place didn't get a yellow ribbon. 4th place got nothing. Nothing, Stuffy.
So Percy Harper cheated somehow to finish ahead of you?
No.
Okay. What manner of revenge will you be taking on him?
He posted a picture to Facebook of the meal he ate last night at the Olive Garden, and
You're Facebook friends with your sworn childhood enemy?
keeping track of your sworn enemies in the hope of one day getting them back for what they did to you is the only reason to still be on Facebook.
Duly noted. So, he posted a picture of his Olive Garden dinner.
Yeah, and one of the breadsticks looks uncannily like a penis. I'm going to report him for violating community guidelines against sexually explicit content. His ass is going to Facebook jail for sure.
At least the punishment will fit the crime.
Yeah. What goes around comes around. How you like me now, Percy? Hope you enjoyed that. Based very loosely on personal experience, I did actually finish 4th in a geography bee when I was in elementary school. However, I do not bear any grudge against any of the other kids who beat me. But that part of it is true. All right. Hi, everybody in the live chat. Before I start answering questions, a couple people threw in super chats while I was focusing on the member questions. Debbie, thank you so much for your contribution. I always appreciate it. And Boxy Browns with a member message says, on average, how many hours of sleep do you get? I usually get a full 8 hours because I go to bed early during the week. When I'm getting up at 5, I usually go to bed at like 9. I go to bed early during the week, so I usually get a full night's sleep. Oh, Isaiah says, what's your favorite? Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones? You know, the problem with that movie is there's really not a volcano. it's false advertising. It's like Volcano starring Tommy Lee Jones. Where's the volcano? Well, it's kind of under the city. It's, well, there's no like crater. There's no mountain. It's not like a volcano. Well, no, not really. I don't know if I care for that. Super chat from S.A. Ross. Thank you very much. Hi, Steve. If the finale of season 2 of Prodigy is all we get, would you call it a satisfying ending? And where does it rank among Trek finales? Oh, I would call it a satisfying ending. Yeah. Yeah. I think if that's all we get, that's a good place to leave it. As far as Trek finales, I mean, it's not as good as, All Good Things, but it's, if we count that, if that ends up being the series finale, I mean, it's above average. I don't think it's like, classic, but I mean, it's better than most. It's better than, it's way better than the finale of classic Trek, because that wasn't even really that wasn't conceived as a series finale. It's better than The last episode of Voyager. I don't think it's better than the last episode of Deep Space Nine. It's better than the last episode of Enterprise. So yeah, I mean, I think it ranks pretty highly for a series finale. Yeah. Mike again says, not a question, but a suggestion. You should watch AEW again. Timeless Tony Storm is the best thing that's happened to pro wrestling in years. I've watched some of her stuff, some of Tony Storm's stuff with that gimmick. It's kind of funny. I mean, and she does a great job performing it like that. She does a really good job working that gimmick. But I don't know. I just don't know if I would be entertained by it week after week after week. Like the little bits of it that I've seen have been fun, but and also, I mean, is it good enough to get me to sit through AEW for 2 hours a week? I don't know. I don't know if it is. But thank you for the suggestion. Tavikins Turner says, Steve, what movie are you always meaning to watch and looking forward to, but never getting to it? That's a really good question. What movie am I always meaning to watch and looking forward to, but never getting to it? You know, I've just a couple of days ago, I watched the movie Quiz Show from 1994. Like for the first time. I've been meaning to watch it for like 30 years and I finally got around to watching it. So that would have been one, but that's all. I crossed that off of the to watch list now. What's another one that I always mean to watch and I haven't had a chance to watch yet? I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that. Nothing is jumping to mind immediately. Stephen Glenard says, do you remember the cover of the Silver Age Lois Lane comic where Superman is rolling around on the ground, soaking in the empowering rays of our yellow sun, while Lois glares at him, pissed off? But Superman, you promised. I don't remember that, but now I really want to find it. No, I really want to see it. I don't think I've ever seen that before, but that sounds amazing. I love just ridiculously goofy Silver Age stuff like that. Super chat from Kirok 2011. Thank you very much, my friend. Metavoy hits the suspect with a phone book, and the end of the episode, he says, excuse me for not being Andy, and I love that. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of, yeah. Metavoy was great. I love Metavoy. Nick Soapdish, Downfall. Great movie. Great movie. Philip says, Ari, your school bell. There's a pair of China dogs that have now passed down through 4 generations of family to my mother. That's cool. That's cool. I like family heirlooms being handed down like that. Boxy Brown says, Titanic. Interesting. Maggie, yesterday. Yeah. About the if the Beatles had never existed. That's a really good movie. I've heard good things about the Hurt Syndicate too, but again, like, and I mean, you say Adam Page is having a crisis of character. Well, hasn't he been doing that for 5 years? When I stopped watching, like pretty much when they fired Punk is when I said, okay, I'm done. Like there's nothing else here for me. I was so fucking tired of Adam Page. Not that he's not talented. He's talented, but I was he was the weakest, wimpiest, most whiny ass baby face. I was like, I don't care about this guy. I'm not rooting for him. I don't give a fuck. I hope he never wins another fucking match. Because I was just done with his whiny, wimpy, weak ass baby face routine. And from what I haven't followed the show super closely, but from the recaps I've read, like, it's not that different. I mean, he's developed a little bit of a mean streak, I guess, but he's still like this mopey, whiny, conflicted, wannabe Shakespeare character. And I'm just like, that's just not my thing. Like, it's just not my thing. Mike, if the matches, were the matches not quote unquote great when I stopped watching? Like, are the matches really that better now than they were 3 or 4 years ago? because I didn't think the matches on the whole were great when I stopped watching. It's one of the reasons I stopped watching, because I was tired of the fucking matches. True55 AD says, why does everyone bring up the premise when they complain about Armageddon? A bunch of regular Joes having to go into space is a fine comic film premise. It's just badly executed. Oh, I agree about that completely. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the premise of Armageddon at all. No, not at all. Kurak says, by the way, watching season 2 of DS9. I love that season. Do you? Yes, I do. I absolutely do. Kurak also says, everyone should see Lost Boys. Best vampire film? Oh, God, no. God, no. I think The Lost Boys is a lot of fun to watch, but I really don't think it's a good movie. Like, it's a hoot. It's entertaining. It's especially if you're watching it with people and you can kind of give it the Mystery Science Theater treatment. Like, it's a hell of a lot of fun. But I don't even think it's a good movie, let alone like best vampire movie. But again, tastes differ. Like if that's what you think, that's fine. John Burns says, JFK, RFK, whatever. I don't mind talking about dead American presidents. Are you saying you never thought about dead Donald Trump? Well, no, I think about that all the time, but I try to limit myself because I don't want to get my hopes up. Aaron Son X says, going by your logic, New York would be the alpha quadrant and New Jersey is the beta quadrant. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, a lot of times when they hold like big sporting events, they'll say coming to New York. And what they really mean is New Jersey. It's right there though. Same thing, yeah, exactly. S.A. Oh, I love that we're talking wrestling. S.A. Ross says, Sting was always my favorite wrestler in any company. I loved Sting so much. Sting was one of my favorites as a kid. I really loved Surfer Sting, with the blonde flat top. Yeah, God, I loved Sting so much. I still go back and watch old Sting matches and just fucking mark out. I love Sting. Yeah. Oh, Kirak says with another super chat, thank you very much. And Kara just asked the same question. Favorite vampire film or best vampire film? Stephen G. Clenard. We have New York at home. Booker T was great, Boxy. WCW Booker T, especially when when he first became a singles wrestler after I think Stevie Ray got injured and he wasn't doing Harlem Heat for a while, and he got his first sort of singles push in WCW and he won the TV title. Man, I was a fan of Booker T back then. And it was cool to see him win the world title eventually too, but by then like the company was on its last legs and he was like literally one of the only enjoyable things on the entire show. So I still liked it and I still thought he was good, but man, his TV title run in like 98 was fucking peak Booker T for me. Anyway, favorite vampire film. I really love the original Murnau version of Nosferatu and the Herzog version of Nosferatu. Those are both way up there for me. I really loved Horror of Dracula, the first Hammer Dracula movie. And as far as vampire films that aren't about Dracula, my favorite might be Let the Right One In. Let the Right One In is a fucking amazing movie. That might be that's definitely my favorite non-Dracula movie. My favorite non-Dracula vampire movie. And of course, What We Do in the Shadows is hilarious, is brilliant. One of the great horror comedies ever made. Near Dark. Yeah, Near Dark is really good. I Isaiah says, thank you for the super chat, my friend. Says, is it me or does Dante's Peak feel more like a Lifetime movie while Volcano is more suited for TNT? That's a great, yeah, that's a great observation. I know exactly what you mean, and I agree. Volcano is definitely a TNT movie. Yes, absolutely. And Dante's Peak does feel more suited for Lifetime. Yes, I know exactly what you mean, and I agree. Blackula's fun, Boxy. I mean, like, I wouldn't necessarily say Blackula is like a good movie, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, come on, a blaxploitation vampire movie starring William Marshall. Like, what's not to love about that? What's not to love about that? Esri, I liked Eggers Nosferatu. I felt like I admired it more than I loved it. I mean, it's incredibly well made and well acted by everybody, and I really admired how he wasn't interested in just riffing on the previous versions. Like, he does that to an extent because he's remaking it, like it's the same story and the same characters, but every opportunity he can, he takes to do something different. Like, he doesn't, as far as I can tell, he doesn't flat out lift any classic shots from the earlier films. He does his version of it. Like, he doesn't do the shot of Orlok's shadow creeping up the stairs. He does a shot that is reminiscent of that, that is obviously inspired by that, but is a completely different shot. You know, he totally subverts expectations when it comes to the, you know, Dracula or Orlok rising up out of the coffin thing, with where he's like stiff as a board and he just swings up like he's on a hinge. He does that scene, and if you're familiar with the movies and you're looking for that shot, you're expecting it, and then he goes completely in a different direction with it, which I thought was great. Same thing with the shot of he's got that shot of like the shadow of Orlok's hand reaching over the town, you know, which again is reminiscent of shots from the previous versions, but not a literal quote. So I really, really liked that. But it didn't move me. It didn't grab me and grip me as much as the previous versions have. So I mean, it's a beautifully made film. I really, really admire it. But it just didn't, you know what I mean? It just didn't get me like the other ones have. Oh, Gregory, Andy Warhol's Dracula. Now you're talking. Oh, shit, yes. Andy Warhol's Dracula and Andy Warhol's Frankenstein. You should watch both of those. Dana says, are vampires your favorite kind of monster? And if so, why? If not, what is? I mean, I don't really have a strong attachment to any particular kind of monster. Like, there have been lots of vampire stories that I have enjoyed, but I don't feel especially drawn to vampires as a thing. Just like, I mean, same thing with werewolves, you know, like the Wolfman, the original Lon Chaney Wolfman, one of my favorite horror movies. I love the Wolfman. Would I say that werewolves are like my favorite monsters? I don't know. But I mean, honestly, if I had to choose, it might be zombies. If I had to choose like a favorite sort of category of monster, it might be zombies, because I think zombies are the scariest, and zombies are the most, not the, I mean, you can do social commentary with any of them, but zombies seem especially suited for satire and social commentary. And it's really hard to romanticize zombies. I'm sure you can do it, but it's really hard to romanticize zombies. You can romanticize vampires, and most people do. You can romanticize werewolves. You know, you can romanticize all kinds of monsters, but zombies are really hard to romanticize. Zombies are kind of inherently off-putting and undesirable and ugly and creepy and like, ugh, you know. So zombies might be my favorite. Geek asks, oh, Werewolf of London. You mean Maggie? Do you mean American Werewolf in London? The which is great. Although there's also the movie from the 1930s called The Werewolf of London, which is also very good. Not as good as The Wolfman, but technically is excellent. It has that great transformation scene where he's walking down the street and he's walking behind streetlights, and every time he passes a streetlight, every time he passes a lamppost, he's a little more of a werewolf until by the time he gets to the end of the block, he's fully werewolfed. Really, really good. Anyway, favorite zombie movie, Geek asks. Oh, God, that's easy. I mean, yeah, you did say zombie movies, so I don't have to pick one. Good. Oh, Lady Intrigue says, have you seen Shaun of the Dead? Yeah, I love Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is great. Favorite zombie movies, I love the first two Romeros, Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, especially Dawn of the Dead. Although both, I mean, Night of the Living Dead is great too. Those are great. Those are top of the list. 28 Days Later is a masterpiece. 28 Days Later is probably my favorite, like, sort of modern zombie movie. And I mean, it's not a movie, it's a TV series, but I really, really, really love The Last of Us. It's just brilliant. I've never played the game. I'm specifically talking about the show. But it's fantastic. Like, it's just, I don't think it's done. I don't think it's done a wrong thing yet. And we're almost at the end of season 2. And I don't think it has taken a wrong step yet. It's just remarkable. Dana asks, what makes zombies the scariest? Because zombies are, zombies are as close to being just literal corpses as you can get without just having a dead person lying there. Like, there's something just to me, and I think to a lot of people, there's something inherently upsetting, inherently blasphemous, not in a religious sense, although to some people probably in a religious sense, but just in like, there's something just wrong about the idea of a zombie, about the idea of a dead person who has come back to life and they're no longer themselves. They don't have they're just a mindless, shuffling, shambling thing that, you can't reason with them. There's nothing you can do except run from them or kill them. And, it might be someone you knew. It might be someone that you loved. It might be a friend. It might be a sibling or a parent or a partner who has died and come back to life in this grotesque, horrible way. I really love the idea that, again, especially with sort of classical Romero style zombies, they're weak, they're slow. If it's just you versus one zombie and you're alert and aware of the situation, you'll probably be okay, because you'll be able to get away or you'll be able to kill the zombie without too much effort, especially if you have a weapon. But it's the group, it's the horde, it's the zombies that come at you in large numbers because they're driven by the instinct to devour you. There's just something really, really fucking scary about that. So yeah, that's what I would say is why I think zombies are the scariest. Boxy, I have not watched iZombie, no. And Dana, yeah, I love, 28 Days Later is a masterpiece. Yes, I have seen the trailers for 28 Years Later. It's interesting. I'll probably see it. I don't know if it'll be any good, but I'm intrigued. Oh, Mike again, Briscoe County Jr. Now you're taking me back. I love Briscoe County Jr. Yeah, it was a one season wonder, wasn't it? 255 AD says, would you want to see a Star Trek story where the Earth Cargo Service goes on strike and an evil admiral tries to get Starfleet to bring in scabs to run the car? That sounds great. That sounds like a great premise. Yes, I would love that. They kind of did that on Babylon 5, didn't they? But I would love to see Star Trek do something like that. Anytime, any excuse the writers of Star Trek could come up with to do another pro labor episode, I'd be all for it. Kirak says you should watch Buffy and Angel and see how zombies are dealt with in each series. I mean, Dead Man's Party or The Thin Dead Line, or when WFH turns into zombies. Yeah, there was some zombie stuff in Buffy and Angel, wasn't there? I don't remember that as much, but yeah, I'll have to go back and watch some of that. Esri says, what's the scariest Star Trek monster? I think the Borg are up there, but for me, I would go with the monster in the TNG episode Schisms. I just find that scene in the holodeck super freaky. Yeah, the Borg in their original version, like the Borg from Q, Who, and Best of Both Worlds, I would say are the scariest. Yeah, because they're so alien. Like most Star Trek aliens are just minor variations on humans, whereas the Borg, especially early on, they seem not just different but unknowable, you know? And I think that makes them very, very effective as villains, and that makes them very scary. So yeah, I would say early version Borg would be my pick for the scariest Star Trek monsters. Oh, John, I haven't seen Sinners yet. No, I really want to see it. I haven't had a chance to see it, but I really want to see it. DJ Mangus says, not a question, just wanted to say thanks, Steve, for your humor. Sometimes gallows humor given the state of the world, but it's necessary nonetheless. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, you part of it is I just naturally have a sick sense of humor, and I like to make jokes about really, really dark, serious things. And part of it is probably a coping mechanism as well. You laugh so you don't cry or scream or hit something or, completely fall to pieces. Boxy Brown, the scariest Star Trek monster was the shapeshifter lady who didn't want Wesley to be with the princess. She was a badass, wasn't she? She was a badass. Yeah, she won Worf's respect. Rather, wasn't that Worf got into a fight with her in one of her sort of more monstrous forms? And they had kind of a moment. Mike again says, what's your take on the O's firing Hyde? Damn shame if you ask me. Well, yeah, but I mean, somebody has to, it's usually the manager who is the first person out the door when the team is doing poorly, so 255 AD says, how did you feel about them introducing the idea that all Borg are assimilated from somewhere else other than bread? I think that's fine. I don't think the scariness of the Borg is rooted in where they come from. I think you can still have scary alien Borg if you allow that they are assimilating people from other species and not just, sort of reproducing their own. I don't think that makes a big difference. I was fine with that. Isaiah says the Paxons and the Shellyak. Yeah, those are both good. The Shellyak. Oh, you know what else? The Shellyak reminded me. What were they called? The species that enslaved Saru's people on Discovery. I can't think of their name. Somebody tell me their name in the chat, please. Yeah, I can't think of their name right now. But yeah, the aliens who dominated the Kelpians in Discovery. Really, really great character design. I love the character design. Geek, yes. The patron hangout is this Sunday. We're coming to the Baul. Thank you, Philip. The Baul. Yeah. Ooh, they were scary. I mean, they were scary to look at. like as characters, they were not that different from other mean, like tyrannical aliens that we've seen in other versions of Star Trek, but the character design and the fact that like they were explicitly eating the Kelpians, um, and also that twist that once upon a time it was the dynamic was different, and the Baul were the persecuted ones. Like that, there was a lot going on there that I found very interesting. But the character design for the Baul was really good. Um, Boxy Brown says the Vidians from Voyager. Yeah, I mean, again, like a lot in Voyager, they had potential. You know, they had potential, and they weren't like zombies, but there was a little bit of kind of like a cannibalistic thing because they had to take other people's organs in order to survive because they all suffered from that disease. Yeah, I would go for the Vidians as a respectable choice for a scary Star Trek villain. Steven, that's correct. Kelpian is good eating, especially if you dip it in melted butter. Fuck. But anyway, yeah, Sunday is the hangout. This Sunday is the hangout. We are coming down close to the end of the show, so I will wrap things up soon. But yes, this Sunday is the hangout. John Burns says Trump canceled public broadcasting a little while ago. Mind singing the Sesame Street theme song? Here, I'll get you started. Sunny day, sweeping the clouds away. On my way to where the air is sweet. Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? It will still be on PBS because PBS still exists. Trump hasn't canceled anything. He's tried to cancel funding to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, but that will be challenged in court. He probably won't get away with that. And even if somehow he is able to zero out the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, public broadcasting stations and PBS itself receives most of its funding not from the federal government or from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, but from viewers like you or me. But viewers like us who watch it and contribute to it. So Sesame Street isn't going anywhere. And also it just got a new deal to go on Netflix. So Sesame Street isn't going anywhere. But it's nice to have appreciation for it anyway. So Random Geek says, what do you think of Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola? It is a hoot. I love it. It's a ton of fun to watch. Again, I don't know if I would say it's a good movie per se, but it is a blast to watch. And there are things about it that are good. I mean, the production design is fantastic. It looks amazing. There are some really striking shots in there. Coppola's the shit out of it. Yeah, but I mean, it's pretty over the top and cheesy and schlocky. But I like it a lot. I enjoy it a lot. Elmo will beat your ass. Okay, I'm going to turn away from the chat for just a moment and wrap things up. And then if anybody has any final questions or comments in the chat, I will grab those before we end the show. So first of all, as we mentioned earlier, and as Geek reminded us in the chat by throwing in the links, don't forget charitylinks.page. Charitylinks.page. It is linked in the description of this live stream. It contains the links that Geek was sharing in the chat before, and just some ways that you can help out some friends of ours who need a helping hand financially, who need some assistance in making ends meet every month, who need help keeping the lights on or putting food on the table or various other issues. So if you have some money left over that you would like to put toward a good cause, please consider helping out our friends that you can find through the links that Geek is putting in the chat or through charitylinks.page. Now, as for me, if you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and you would like to help out and support the channel and enable me to continue to do YouTube stuff, including these live streams and all the other videos that I do, you can help out with a regular monthly contribution, not unlike contributing to your local PBS station or local NPR station. Although I would never put myself in the same category as that, as a robust public good. But same kind of idea. If you watch my stuff and you enjoy it and you want to help me continue making it, you can support me and this channel and my work with a direct monthly contribution. You can do it through Patreon by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, or you can click the join button on the YouTube page and become a channel member. And either way, whether you become a member or a patron, one of the benefits that you get access to is you can submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away live streams that I do twice every month. The questions that I answer in the first part of the show are questions that I have received during the previous week from patrons and members who wanted to ask me stuff. So that's something that you can do too if you become a patron or a member at any level of support whatsoever. Also, in addition to the YouTube stuff, don't forget that I am a co-host on a couple of awesome podcasts that are a part of the Lemmy Listen family of podcasts. There is Late Seating, the movie review podcast that I co-host along with the brilliant Jason Harding. Our new episode is our review of It's Jason's Birthday movie. See, Jason and I both have birthdays in the month of May. Mine is at the beginning of May. Jason's is at the end of May. So our first May show is always my birthday show, and we reviewed Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves for my birthday show. And this next episode is Jason's birthday show, where he picks one of his favorite movies. And the movie we reviewed for it just so happens to be one of my favorite movies as well. It's Barton Fink, the classic Coen Brothers movie starring John Turturro and John Goodman. It is just a masterpiece of dark, absurdist comedy. If you've never seen it, treat yourself and watch Barton Fink, and then listen to us review it, because we both really like it, and it's a really fun episode where we get to talk about how awesome Barton Fink is and how much we love that fucking movie. And I'm also a cast member on the Ensign's Log, which is a Star Trek themed improv comedy podcast where myself and Jason and our friend Amanda Billings, and previously our friend Dana, although she has since moved on from the show, but we'll try to coax her back in for an episode here and there in the future. But right now it's me and Amanda and Jason, and we play characters, our own original characters that we have created who exist in the Star Trek universe. And right now we're on Deep Space Nine, and Deep Space Nine stuff from the actual show is kind of happening in the background while we are doing our own stories and our own bits and carrying on in our own unique original way in the foreground of the show. It's a lot of fun to do. We always have a blast when we record the show, and hopefully if you like Star Trek and you like funny Star Trek and also stuff that kind of makes fun of Star Trek, and you haven't given it a listen yet, you can give a listen to the Ensign's Log, and maybe you will enjoy listening to it as much as we enjoy making it. So that's it for me, everybody. I'm going to look back at the live chat real quick and see what else we have here, if there are any final questions. The Darth Eddie, the Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera, the 100th anniversary this year, and it holds up so well. What is your opinion on the movie? I agree. It holds up really well. It's a masterpiece. I wish we had more Lon Chaney movies. We have a lot, but there are some of his, at the time, were considered some of his great movies or his great performances that have been lost, that are just lost movies. But Lon Chaney Sr. is a legend, is one of the greats, and Phantom of the Opera, I love it. I love the original Phantom of the Opera. And it's silent, so no music. Well, there's, you get the organ and stuff, but no Andrew Lloyd Webber music. Oh, Brian Baker says, which is more Star Trek, Galaxy Quest or the Orville? I mean, obviously they're both Star Trek pastiches, but I think you'd have to say the Orville is more Star Trek because, like, the Orville is literally Star Trek: The Next Generation with the serial numbers filed off. Like, it is so obviously an intentional and conscious attempt to do a show that is as close to being Star Trek as you can possibly do without being sued. So I think the Orville is much closer to Star Trek than Galaxy, although I'm a fan of both. I like both. 225 AD says, with regard to the PBS thing, do people need to stop just talking like Trump already has dictatorial power and can just decree things? Yes. Yes, they do need to stop talking like that. They need to stop ceding territory to him, even if it's just rhetorically. Absolutely. Trying to 1701. I don't think I have heard of the Election Truth Alliance. I will look into that after the show. Simon Moody says, I listened to the late sitting episodes on 300, Braveheart, and Jaws the Revenge over the last week or so. I think Jason needs therapy to keep from self-harm. I think at some points the podcast is his therapy. I think it helps for him to as Jason would say, it helps to get the poison out. So I think we help him by making the show. Oh, John, yes. George Wendt passed away. Favorite Norm Peterson line from Cheers. Hey, Mr. Peterson, what are you thinking? Women can't live with them. Pass the beer nuts. Yep. Good old George Wendt. Tavik and Sterner says, I wanted to say your rewrite for Generations and the Voyager finale was outstanding. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Very nice of you to say. All right, I'm going to cut it off there. Thanks, everybody, for being with me. Thanks for the awesome questions. Thanks for the support in whatever form it comes. Thanks for the super chats to those of you who contributed those. Thanks to all of you who are patrons and members for your continuing support. I couldn't do it without you. And thanks to all of you for hanging out and the awesome questions and comments and just generally being cool people to join for a live chat every couple of weeks. We will see you on Sunday for the monthly patrons and members hangout. So I'll see you then for that. And I'll see you for one of these. Oh, and I believe this Wednesday, Dana and I are back for Trek Reluctantly. We're ending, our hiatus comes to an end this Wednesday because Dana is finally done with school. And she can have a little bit more time to relax and enjoy watching Poirot is the next one we're going to watch, an episode of Poirot. So we'll see you for that on Wednesday, and then I'll see you back here in 2 weeks for another Ask Away. So thank you all so very much for everything. Have a good night. Have a good weekend, and take care, everybody.